Welcome to my Channel Deep Sleep Mission-DSM. As we begin, I would be delighted if you could share your location in the comments below. It's truly inspiring to witness how far this content travels and to connect with viewers from across the world. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you might save your life. Or, at the very least, it might save your sanity. Last week I discovered something about time that nobody talks about. Something that happens when we sleep, when we dream, when we have nightmares. And if you've ever woken up feeling like hours passed in minutes or minutes stretched into hours, then you already know what I'm talking about. You just don't know how dangerous it really is. Before I start this story, I need you to do something for me. Look at your clock right now. Remember what time it is, because by the end of this, you might not trust it anymore. And if you're listening to this in bed, well, maybe keep the lights on. The story begins now. The antique shop on Maple Street had been there forever. You know the type. Dusty windows, faded open sign that flickered like it was having second thoughts, and that peculiar smell of old wood mixed with something you could never quite identify. I'd passed it 1,000 times on my way to work at the Denver Post, but I'd never gone inside. Until that Tuesday in October. I wasn't even looking for a clock. I was killing time, waiting for the rain to let up before walking the last 3 blocks to my apartment. The bell above the door made this hollow, tinny sound that seemed to echo longer than it should have. "Be right with you," came a voice from somewhere in the back. I wandered through narrow aisles packed with the usual suspects. Vintage typewriters, tarnished silverware, boxes of yellowed photographs featuring people whose names were probably forgotten decades ago. Normal stuff. Safe stuff. Then I saw it. The clock was sitting on a shelf between a music box and a ceramic elephant. Nothing special about it at first glance. Just an old mantel clock, dark wood, Roman numerals on a cream-colored face. But something about it pulled me closer. Maybe it was the way the second hand moved. Not in that smooth, continuous sweep you see on modern clocks, but in these deliberate, calculated ticks, like it was thinking about each second before letting it pass. "Ah, you found the Brennan clock." I jumped. The shop owner had materialized beside me. This thin guy with wire-rimmed glasses and hands that moved like he was constantly conducting an invisible orchestra. "The Brennan clock?" I asked. He nodded, reaching past me to pick it up. "Estate sale last month. The Brennan family lived up in Evergreen. Terrible what happened." I waited for him to continue, but he just stood there, turning the clock over in his hands. "What happened?" I finally asked. He looked at me over his glasses. "The son, Gregory Brennan. They found him in his bedroom. Hadn't slept in days, apparently. Kept talking about..." He shook his head. "Well, the mind plays tricks when you're sleep-deprived." Something cold settled in my stomach, but I couldn't look away from the clock. The price tag said $40. I had $60 in my wallet. "Does it work?" "Oh yes," he said, setting it back on the shelf. "Keeps perfect time, during the day anyway." I should have asked what he meant by that. Should have walked out right then, waited for the rain to stop, gone home to my normal life with my normal, predictable digital alarm clock. Instead, I bought it. The first few nights were fine. I set the clock on my nightstand, and it ticked away peacefully. A soothing, rhythmic sound that actually helped me fall asleep. My girlfriend Sarah even commented on it when she stayed over that weekend. "It's kind of romantic," she said, tracing her finger along the carved wooden base, like something out of an old movie. I didn't tell her about the Brennan family. Didn't mention the shop owner's warning about daytime. It seemed silly, paranoid. Just an old man trying to make a sale more interesting. Then Monday night happened. I went to bed around 11, same as always. The clock showed 11:07 when I turned off the light. I remember because I always check. It's this weird habit I've had since college. The nightmare started innocent enough. I was back at my childhood home in Colorado Springs, standing in the kitchen. My mom was making pancakes, but something was wrong with her movements. They were too slow, like she was underwater. I tried to speak, but my voice came out backwards. Then I heard it. Ticking. Not the gentle rhythm I'd grown used to, but fast, frantic, like a heartbeat during a panic attack. I looked around the dream kitchen and there was my new clock, sitting on the counter where the microwave should be. The hands were spinning, not just moving fast, but spinning like a carousel out of control. I woke up gasping. The room was dark, but I could see the clock's face glowing faintly in the moonlight from my window. 2:47 a.m. I'd only been asleep for, 3.5 hours? But it felt like days. My sheets were soaked with sweat, and my heart was racing to match that frantic ticking I'd heard in the dream. Except, the ticking wasn't just in the dream. The clock on my nightstand was going crazy. The second hand wasn't moving in its usual deliberate way. It was jumping, skipping, racing around the face like it was trying to escape. The minute hand was visibly moving, and even the hour hand was creeping forward at a pace you could actually see. I sat up, reached for the clock, and it stopped. Just like that, back to normal, tick, tick, tick. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for it to start up again. But it just sat there, innocent as ever, showing 2:48 a.m. like nothing had happened. I should have thrown it away the next morning. Should have taken it back to the antique shop. Left it on the doorstep if the place was closed. Should have done a lot of things. Instead, I did what any rational person would do. I Googled Gregory Brennan, Evergreen, Colorado. The news articles were from 3 months ago. Local man, 34, found dead in his home. No signs of foul play. The autopsy showed severe sleep deprivation, hallucinations in the days leading up to his death. His sister was quoted saying he'd become obsessed with time, convinced that something was stealing his nights. I dug deeper, found a Reddit thread where someone claiming to be his neighbor said Gregory had been perfectly normal until he inherited some antiques from his grandmother. Said he started complaining about nightmares, about losing time, about... The thread was deleted, but I'd seen enough. That night, I moved the clock to the living room. Sarah texted around 9, asked if I wanted to grab drinks. I made up some excuse about work. Truth was, I needed to test something. Needed to know if I was going crazy or if... I set up my phone to record video, pointed it at the clock. Then I lay down on the couch where I could see it and forced myself to fall asleep. The nightmare was worse this time. I was in an empty house. Not mine, not my childhood home, but somewhere that felt familiar in that dream logic way. The walls were covered in clocks, hundreds of them, all ticking at different speeds, creating this chaotic symphony of time. And in the center of the room was a figure. I couldn't make out details. It was like trying to focus on something in your peripheral vision. But I knew it was watching me. Waiting. Time, it said. And its voice was the sound of clock gears grinding together. Time is the only currency that matters. The clocks on the walls started spinning faster. Their faces began to melt, numbers sliding off like wet paint. And through it all, that figure just stood there, growing clearer with each passing second. I woke up on the couch, heart hammering. The living room was bright, morning sunlight streaming through the windows. I grabbed my phone, stopped the recording. It was 10:43 a.m. I'd slept for almost 12 hours. But when I played back the video, my blood went cold. The timestamp showed I'd only recorded for 2 hours and 17 minutes. The clock in the frame was going insane. Hands spinning like I'd seen the night before, sometimes fast, sometimes stopping entirely, sometimes moving backwards. And there was something else. At the 1 hour, 47 minutes and 33 seconds mark, there was a shadow. It moved across the frame, despite nothing in my apartment that could have cast it. It paused in front of the clock for just a moment, and I swear I could see fingers reaching toward the face. I called in sick to work, spent the day researching, diving into forums about cursed objects, time distortion, anything that might explain what was happening. Found stories, too many stories, about people who'd experienced similar things, lost time, accelerated nightmares, clocks that didn't follow the rules. Most of the posts were old. The users who'd written them hadn't logged in for months or years. One username caught my eye. Jubrennan_84. Gregory Brennan. 3 posts, all from 4 months ago. The last one was just a single line. It's not stealing time, it's making room. Room for what? I didn't want to know, but I was already too deep. That night I set up more cameras. One on the clock, one on me, one facing the hallway. I even borrowed Sarah's fitness tracker to monitor my heart rate while I slept. If I was going crazy, I wanted proof. If I wasn't, I wanted proof of that too. The nightmare started before I even felt myself falling asleep. One moment I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. The next, the ceiling was gone, replaced by a swirling vortex of clock faces. I was falling upward into it, and each face I passed showed a different time. 3:17, 9:42, 14:91. Wait, that's not even a real time. I landed in a room made of seconds. I don't know how else to describe it. The walls, the floor, everything was constructed from frozen moments. I could see them, actually see individual seconds from my life, crystallized and stacked like bricks. There was the second I learned to ride a bike, the second I kissed Sarah for the first time, the second I bought the clock. You're early. I spun around. The figure from the previous nightmare was there, clearer now. It looked almost human, but stretched, like someone had grabbed a person and pulled them like taffy. Its face was a blur of features that never quite settled into place. Early for what? My voice sounded strange, echoey. It tilted its head, or what I thought was its head. The exchange, of course, time for time, dreams for days. You've been making deposits, but the account isn't quite full yet. The room started spinning. Or maybe I was spinning. The seconds in the walls began to move, playing out their moments in fast-forward, reverse, slow motion. "What are you?" I managed to ask. It laughed, and the sound was like 1,000 clocks chiming at once. "I'm what happens when time gets tired of being linear. When dreams decide they deserve more space. When nightmares realize they're more real than the waking world." The walls were closing in now, seconds colliding and shattering. I could feel myself fragmenting, spreading across multiple moments at once. I was 5 years old and 32 simultaneously. I was being born and dying and everything in between. I woke up screaming. It was dark, too dark. I fumbled for my phone, knocked it off the nightstand. When I finally got it, the screen showed 3:33 a.m., but that couldn't be right. I'd gone to bed at 10:30, and the nightmare had felt like hours. I checked the video recordings. The one pointed at me showed nothing unusual for the first hour. Then, at 11:47 p.m., I simply vanished. One frame I was there, and the next the bed was empty. For 6 hours, the camera recorded an empty bed. At 5:47 a.m., I reappeared. Same position, same everything. Like I'd never left. But the timestamp on the video said 3:33 a.m. when I woke up. The clock camera was worse. The device had stopped recording at 11:47, the exact moment I disappeared. The last frame showed the clock face, but the numbers had changed. Instead of Roman numerals, they were symbols I didn't recognize, couldn't recognize. Looking at them made my eyes water. The hallway camera. I've watched that footage a dozen times now. Still can't explain it. At 11:47, something walked past. Tall, impossibly thin, moving in stutters like a film with missing frames. It paused at my bedroom door, and for one horrible second, it looked directly at the camera. It had my face. Not exactly my face, but close. like someone had tried to draw me from memory and gotten the proportions slightly wrong. It smiled, and its mouth had too many teeth, then static. The camera didn't start recording again until 5:47. I called Sarah. Needed to hear a normal voice, needed anchor myself to reality. She answered on the third ring, groggy but concerned. "David." It's like, "What time is it?" "I don't know," I said, and laughed. It sounded hysterical even to me. That's the problem. I don't know what time it is anymore. She wanted to come over. I told her no, couldn't risk whatever was happening to me spreading to her. But I asked her to check something for me. "Google Gregory Brennan," I said. "Evergreen, Colorado. Tell me what you find." A silence on her end as she typed, then, "David, there's nothing, no results." My blood went cold. "That's impossible. I found articles." "Wait," she interrupted. "There's one thing. A missing persons report from... This can't be right. It says 1947. 1947. I hung up, ran to my laptop, searched again. Nothing. All the articles I'd found, the Reddit threads, the post from GU Brennan _84, gone. Like they'd never existed. Or like they hadn't happened yet. The clock in the living room was ticking. I could hear it from my bedroom, impossibly loud, not just ticking, calling. I walked toward it like a sleepwalker, each step taking me further from the world I knew. It was running backwards. The hands moved counterclockwise, smooth and deliberate. The face had changed too. Those strange symbols were there now, shifting and reforming every few seconds, and reflected in the glass. That stretched figure stood behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. But in the reflection it remained, getting clearer, more solid. "Time isn't a river," it said, its voice coming from the clock itself. "It's a web, and you've been pulling threads." I reached for the clock, planning to smash it against the wall. But the moment my fingers touched it, the world exploded into fragments. I was everywhere, everyone. I saw Gregory Brennan buying the clock from an estate sale in 2024. Saw him gift it to his grandmother in 1962. Saw her as a young woman in 1947, finding it in an antique shop, the owner warning her it only kept proper time during the day. The loop. The endless, impossible loop. "We need anchors," the figure explained. And now I could see it clearly. It wasn't one being, but thousands, millions. All the people who'd owned the clock, who'd lost time to it, who'd fed their nightmares into its mechanism. Anchors in your reality to pull ourselves through. You've been very accommodating. I tried to pull my hand away, but it was fused to the clock. I could feel my memories, my time, my very existence being drawn into it. Processed, redistributed. "Please," I whispered. "Oh, we're not taking everything," it said, almost kindly. Just enough to make room for us to visit, to walk in your world while you sleep, to borrow your faces, your lives, your moments. Fair exchange, don't you think?" The room was spinning. Or I was spinning. Or time itself was spinning. I closed my eyes, tried to focus on something real. Sarah's laugh. The smell of coffee. The feeling of rain on my skin. And then I remembered something the shop owner had said. Keeps perfect time. During the day, anyway. During the day, I forced my eyes open. The window. If I could just make it to the window, open the curtains, let in the morning light. But it was too late. I could feel myself scattering across time, becoming part of the clock's mechanism. In a few hours, days, years, someone would find this clock in an antique shop. They'd buy it, take it home, start the cycle again. And somewhere in 1947, a young woman named Mrs. Brennan was having the strangest nightmare. I'm writing this because I have to, because maybe if I get it all down, if I leave some kind of record, someone will understand. Someone will know to avoid the clock when they see it. Or maybe I'm writing this because I've already written it. Because somewhere in the loop of time, I always write this, always post it, always hope. It's been 3 days since I touched the clock. 3 days or 30 years or 3 seconds. Time doesn't mean what it used to. I exist in fragments now. During the day, I'm mostly here, mostly me. I go to work. I think I go to work. People see me, talk to me, but their words sound delayed, like I'm hearing them through water, through time. Sarah left 14 voicemails before she stopped calling. In the last one, she said I'd been acting strange for weeks. Said I'd been sleepwalking, showing up at her apartment at impossible hours. Said I'd been speaking backwards. I don't remember any of that. But I remember her dreams. I was there, in the corners, watching, borrowing her face when she wasn't using it. All of us were, are, will be. The clock is gone now, vanished from my apartment like it was never there. But I know where it is, when it is. It's in a shop on Maple Street waiting. It's in Gregory Brennan's bedroom, ticking faster and faster. It's in his grandmother's house in 1947, keeping perfect time during the day. It's everywhere it needs to be. I see them sometimes, the others, walking through crowds with faces that don't quite fit, standing in reflections where no one is standing. They nod when they see me like we're part of some secret club, and maybe we are. Maybe that's what the figure meant by making room. Not room in time, but room in reality. Space for things that exist in the gaps between seconds, in the dark hours where nightmares bloom. I tried to warn people, posted on forums, reached out to anyone who'd listen. But the posts disappear. The words rearrange themselves. Sometimes I find messages I don't remember writing, warning about a clock that runs slow during nightmares, or fast during dreams, or stops entirely when you're awake. All true, none true. Truth is just another kind of time now. Last night, or was it last year, I had the dream again, the room made of seconds. But this time, I wasn't alone. There were dozens of us there, all the clock's owners, throughout time. We stood in a circle, watching our moments play out in the walls. It's almost complete, the figure said. It looked like me now, or I looked like it. Hard to tell anymore. Just a few more anchors, a few more dreams. Then we can stop hiding in the shadows of sleep. I wanted to ask what happens then. What happens when they have enough anchors, enough borrowed time, enough stolen dreams to fully exist in our world. But I already knew. I'd always known. They don't want to invade, don't want to conquer. They want to trade places. And we've been making it so easy for them. Every nightmare, every lost hour, every moment where time feels wrong. We're building bridges, opening doors, inviting them in. The clock was just one tool. There are others. Objects that bend reality just enough to create cracks. Things that seem harmless, antique, quaint. Things that keep perfect time during the day. I found 17 similar stories online before they all disappeared. A music box in Seattle that plays tomorrow's songs. A mirror in Boston that reflects yesterday's faces. A photograph in Phoenix that shows what happens next. All of them creating anchors. All of them pulling threads. All of them waiting for the right dreamer to complete the pattern. I don't sleep anymore, can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that room of seconds, watching myself from 1,000 different moments, watching the walls grow thinner, watching the figure wear my face better than I ever did. But staying awake isn't the answer either, because I can feel them moving in the corners of my vision, using the time I'm not using, practicing being me while I'm too tired to notice. Sometimes I catch myself in mirrors, and I'm already looking back. Sometimes I answer phones before they ring. Sometimes I remember things that haven't happened yet, and forget things that just did. The clock is coming back. I know this like I know my own name, though I'm not always sure what that is anymore. Someone will buy it today, or tomorrow, or 40 years ago. They'll take it home, set it on their nightstand, fall asleep to its gentle ticking. And in their dreams, I'll be waiting. We'll all be waiting. Because that's what we do now. What we've always done. What we will always do. We wait in the spaces between seconds, in the pause between heartbeats, in the moment between sleep and waking. We wait for you to notice that time isn't what you think it is. That dreams aren't where you think they are. That the clock on your wall, the one that's been running a little fast lately, the one that seems to skip a beat when you're not looking. It's not broken, it's working perfectly, just not for you. If you're still listening, if you made it this far, I need you to do something for me. Check your clock again, the one you looked at when I asked you to at the beginning. Is it showing the right time? Are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? Because here's the thing about time. It's only as real as we agree it is. And if enough of us start disagreeing, start experiencing different times, different moments, different realities, well, the figure in my dreams, in my apartment, in my mirror, it told me something last night, or tomorrow night, or right now. It said they're almost ready, almost have enough anchors, almost have enough of us who understand that time is negotiable, that reality is a democracy, that nightmares are just dreams that know they're more interesting than waking life. It said they only need one more, just one more person to buy a strange clock, or music box, or mirror, or photograph. Just one more person to notice that time moves differently in dreams. Just one more person to reach out and touch something they shouldn't. Just one more. And if you're thinking about that antique shop you pass on your way to work, the one with the dusty window and the flickering sign, the one you've always been curious about but never entered, maybe today's the day. Maybe you'll find something interesting, something unique, something that calls to you in a way you can't quite explain. Maybe you'll bring it home. Maybe you'll dream. And maybe, just maybe, you'll finally understand what I've been trying to tell you. Time isn't running out. It's running in, and we're almost ready for you to join us. Sweet dreams. Tell me, what did you think of this story? Did it make you check your clock? Did it make you question that antique shop down the street? Did it make you wonder what's real and what's not? Leave a comment below. Share this with someone who loves a good scare. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories that'll keep you up at night. Though after this one, staying awake might not help. And remember, every time you have a nightmare, every time you lose track of time, every time you wake up feeling like hours passed in minutes, we're waiting. We're always waiting. The clock is still ticking. Somewhere, somewhen. Maybe it's ticking for you. Story number 2. Look at this photo. Can you see me? No, really look closer. I'm the one in the back, barely visible behind my sister Sarah. Or at least, I used to be there. Yesterday, you could see my whole face. Today, it's just a blur where my eyes should be. If you're watching this alone right now, maybe check your own photos. Just to be safe, because once it starts happening, there's no going back. Before you click away, before you tell yourself this is just another creepypasta, I need you to understand something. This isn't fiction. This is happening to me right now. And by the time you finish listening to this, I might not exist at all. So please, just listen. Maybe you'll see the pattern I missed. Maybe you'll save yourself. The story starts now. My name is Emma Chen, and I live in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon. 3 weeks ago, I was organizing old photos for my mom's 60th birthday slideshow. You know how it is. Boxes of prints from the pre-digital days, old USB drives with forgotten memories, Facebook albums from college. Normal stuff. I'd spread everything across my living room floor. Pizza boxes from Tony's down the street, half-empty coffee mugs, and hundreds of photos creating a timeline of our family's life. The rain tapped against my window. That soft Portland drizzle that makes you want to stay inside forever. That's when I noticed it. The first photo was from my high school graduation in 2015. Lincoln High School, standing with my best friend Mia outside the auditorium. I remembered that day perfectly. The way the June sun felt too hot in our polyester gowns, how Mia's mom made us pose for what felt like 1,000 pictures. But something was off. In the photo, Mia stood there clear as day, her blonde hair catching the light, that huge smile she always had. But me? I looked faded, like someone had taken an eraser to parts of my face. Not blurry like the camera moved, faded, like I was becoming transparent. Weird, I muttered, setting it aside. Probably just sun damage or something. I kept sorting. Birthday parties, family barbecues, that road trip to Crater Lake. Normal memories. Until I found another one. Christmas 2018 at my parents' house in Beaverton. The whole family crowded around the tree. My brother Jake, Sarah, my cousins from California. Everyone looked perfect, frozen in that moment of holiday chaos. Everyone except me. This time, it wasn't just my face, my whole left arm was gone. Not cut out of the frame, gone. You could see the couch behind where my arm should have been. My hands started shaking. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my Instagram. Recent photos looked normal. Me at Powell's Books last week, brunch at Screen Door, hiking Multnomah Falls. All fine, but as I scrolled back further, 2019, 2018, 2017, the older the photo, the less of me there was. This is insane, I whispered to my empty apartment. The rain had picked up, hammering against the windows now. I could hear my neighbor's TV through the thin walls. Some game show with canned laughter that felt too loud, too happy for what I was discovering. I called Mia. "Hey, Em, what's up?" Her voice was bright, normal. The sound of traffic in the background. She was probably driving home from her shift at the hospital. "Mia, this is going to sound crazy, but can you look at our graduation photo? The one outside the auditorium? The one where we're doing peace signs?" "Sure, hold on." I heard her pulling over, the turn signal clicking. Okay, found it on my phone. "Why? Do I look normal to you?" Silence. Then, "Em, what do you mean? You look great, although, wait, what? That's weird. Your face is kind of blurry. Must be a bad upload. Facebook always compresses photos weird." My throat felt tight. "Check another one, any old photo of us." More silence. I could hear her breathing, hear the rain on her windshield matching mine. "Emma?" Her voice was different now, quieter. "In our spring break photo from senior year, I can barely see you. You're like a ghost." I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I spent hours going through every photo I could find, creating a timeline of my disappearance. The pattern was terrifyingly consistent. Recent photos, normal. Go back a month, slight fading around the edges. 6 months, parts of me missing. A year, translucent. 5 years, barely a shadow. By 3 a.m., I'd covered my entire coffee table with printed photos, arranged chronologically. Looking at them all together made my stomach turn. It was like watching myself dissolve in reverse. I needed answers. The next morning, I called in sick to work. My manager at the marketing firm barely listened to my excuse, something about food poisoning. I threw on yesterday's clothes and drove to my parents' house. My 2012 Honda Civic struggling up the hills in the rain. Mom answered the door in her gardening clothes, dirt under her fingernails despite the weather. "Emma, what a surprise. You look terrible, honey. Are you eating enough?" "Mom, I need to see our photo albums, all of them." She frowned but led me to the basement. You know that smell. Old cardboard and dust, memories packed away in boxes. We had dozens of albums, those heavy ones with the plastic pages that stick together. I started with my baby photos. The first album, 1995 to 1997, was the worst. In my newborn photos, I wasn't there at all. Just empty blankets in my mom's arms. Her face frozen in joy, looking down at nothing. "Mom," my voice cracked, "look at this." She peered over my shoulder, adjusting her reading glasses. "Oh, that's you as a baby. Look how small you were. And that little outfit. I remember buying that at Target." "Mom, look closer." She squinted. Traced her finger over the photo, over the empty space where I should have been. She blinked hard. "That's... Why can't I see?" Then the strangest thing happened. Her face went blank, like someone had hit reset. She smiled again. "What were we looking at, honey? Oh, these old photos. Want some coffee?" "Mom, we were just... I'll make us some coffee. You keep looking." She patted my shoulder and headed upstairs, humming some old song from the 90s. I sat there, surrounded by evidence of my disappearance, completely alone. The albums told a horrifying story. In photos from my first 5 years of life, I didn't exist. Empty spaces where I should have been. Birthday parties with a cake but no child. Christmas mornings with presents being opened by invisible hands. Then, around age 6, a shadow appeared. Faint, barely human-shaped, but there. Each year forward, I became more solid, more real, until recent photos where I looked completely normal. But now, the process was reversing. I took photos of the photos with my phone, needing proof I wasn't losing my mind. But when I checked them, the photos of photos showed the same thing. Me, vanishing from my own history. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Hey, Sarah's looking at old photos for Mom's thing. She's freaking out, says you look weird in them. What's going on?" I drove to Sarah's apartment in the Pearl District, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The Portland streets were slick with rain, reflecting the gray sky like mirrors. Everything felt unreal, like I was already half-fated myself. Sarah met me at the door, her face pale. What's happening to you?" "I don't know." We sat on her couch, her laptop open between us. She'd been digitizing photos too, had them all organized in folders by year. "Look," she clicked through them rapidly. 2010, you're clear. 2011, still normal. But 2012, see? You're starting to fade. And it gets worse the further forward I go." "Forward?" "Sarah, for me, it's backward. Old photos are worse." We stared at each other. "Emma," her voice was barely a whisper, "in my photos from last week, you're completely gone. I need you to understand something. When you start disappearing from photos, it's not just the images that fade, it's everything." That night, I went through my social media obsessively. Facebook, Instagram, even my old MySpace page I forgot existed. The pattern held everywhere. But I noticed something else. The comments. On a photo from my college graduation at Portland State, my friend Marcus had commented, "Great pic. Who's that shadow next to Dean Morrison?" Shadow. He saw me as a shadow. On my 25th birthday dinner at Le Pigeon. "Why did you upload a picture of an empty chair?" My LinkedIn profile photo, the professional headshot I'd paid too much for, showed just a gray silhouette. I started calling people. Old friends, co-workers, anyone who might have photos with me. The conversations all went the same way. "Yeah, it's weird. You look kind of faded." Must be some kind of filter glitch. "Why are you asking about old photos at 11 p.m.? Then I called my ex, David. We dated for 3 years, had hundreds of photos together. He answered on the second ring. "Emma, it's late. Is everything okay?" "David, I need you to look at our photos, please. Any of them." A pause. "We broke up 2 years ago. Why would I—" "Please, just humor me." I heard him sigh, heard him moving around his apartment. "Okay, I'm looking at that trip to Cannon Beach. The one where we—" He stopped. "That's... Emma, why can't I see you?" "What do you mean?" "I'm looking right at it. I remember taking this. You were wearing that blue sundress, and we'd just gotten ice cream from that place on Hemlock. but in the photo, it's just me, standing alone on the beach. My heart was racing. Check another one. Our anniversary dinner at Pok Pok, just me at a table for one. The hiking trip to Mount Hood. Solo shots. Emma, what is this? Some kind of joke? Now look at the last photo you have of us, the most recent one. Silence. Then, you're there, clear as day, at my sister's wedding last month. Wait, we broke up 2 years ago. Why were you at my sister's? His voice faded. I can't remember. The call dropped. When I tried calling back, the number was disconnected. I decided to test something. I took a selfie in my bathroom mirror. Normal. I looked tired, scared, but solid. Real. I waited 5 minutes and took another. Still normal, but then I had an idea, a terrible idea. I set my phone's timer and placed it across the room. 10-second countdown. I stood against the white wall waiting. The phone clicked. In the photo, I was translucent. Not faded, like the old photos. Translucent, like a ghost caught on camera. I took another. This time, I could see the wall through my body. Another. Fainter. Another. A barely visible outline. The photos I was taking in real time were showing me disappearing, but only when I wasn't holding the camera myself. Only when I was being observed, not observing. I called Sarah, panicking. No answer. Mia, straight to voicemail. My parents' landline just rang and rang. Then I noticed my contacts list. Names were graying out. David's number, gone. College friends, fading. Like my phone was forgetting people as they forgot me. I needed help, real help. But who would believe me? That's when I remembered Dr. Martinez. Dr. Elena Martinez taught my Psychology of Memory course at Portland State. She'd done research on collective memory, false memories, the way groups remember events differently than individuals. If anyone could make sense of this, it was her. Her office was in Newburger Hall, 4th floor. I'd sat there years ago discussing my senior thesis on childhood amnesia. Now, I stood outside her door at 7 a.m., knowing she always came in early. Emma Chen. She looked surprised, but pleased. It's been... Actually, how long has it been? 5 years, I said quickly. Dr. Martinez, I need your help. Something impossible is happening. She invited me in. Same cluttered office, same smell of coffee and old books. I showed her everything. The photos on my phone, the pattern, the timeline I'd created. She listened without interrupting, occasionally adjusting her glasses. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Show me the most recent photo you've taken. I took a selfie and handed her my phone. Her face went pale. Emma, there's no one in this photo. What? No, I'm right there. I looked. The photo showed her office, just her office, no me. But you're sitting right in front of me, she said slowly. I can see you. I can hear you. But the camera... It's getting worse. In old photos, I'm disappearing backward through time. In new photos, I'm disappearing forward, like I'm being erased from both directions. She pulled out a notebook, started writing rapidly. Tell me, when did you first notice this? 3 weeks ago, October 15th. And what happened that day, before you noticed the photos? I thought back. Nothing special. I woke up, went to work, came home, ordered Thai food from that place on Burnside. Started organizing photos for Mom's birthday. Think harder. Anything unusual? Any dreams? Meet anyone new? Dreams. Actually, the memory surfaced slowly, like something floating up from deep water. I did have a weird dream that night, before I looked at the photos. Tell me, I was in this place. Not a room, exactly. Everything was white, endless white in all directions. And there was someone there. Something there. It asked me a question. My head started pounding. The memory felt slippery, hard to hold. What question, Emma? It asked if I wanted to be remembered or to remember. Dr. Martinez stopped writing. And what did you answer? The pain in my head intensified. I said I wanted to remember. to remember everything, to never forget. Emma, her voice was gentle but urgent. I think you made a choice, a trade. You can remember everything, but you can't be remembered. That's insane. Is it? Look at your photos. You're being erased from collective memory, from recorded history, but you still remember. You still exist in your own perception. You chose to be the observer, not the observed. Then, how do I undo it? She looked at me sadly. I don't know if you can, but Emma, I'm already starting to forget why you're here. I can see you, but it's like trying to hold water. In a few minutes, I won't remember this conversation. No, please, you have to help me. Write everything down, she said urgently. Document it all. Maybe, if you record your story, if you put it out there, someone will remember. Someone will see the pattern. Her eyes were already getting that unfocused look. I'm sorry, do I know you? Office hours aren't until 9. I ran, down the stairs, out into the Portland morning. The city looked the same. Coffee shops opening, people heading to work, the usual chaos of downtown. But when I caught my reflection in store windows, I could see through myself. Back in my apartment, I started recording. Writing the story you're hearing now. Because Dr. Martinez was right. I need someone to remember. I need someone to see what's happening. I've been typing for hours. The sun is setting now, painting the sky pink and gold over the city. I just took another photo. There's nothing there, just my empty apartment. But I'm still here, still remembering, still aware. I can hear my neighbor through the walls, hear the rain starting again, feel the keys under my fingers. I exist, I know I exist, but for how much longer? If you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, please check your photos, check them carefully. Look for the faces that are fading, the people becoming shadows. We're still here. We're still real. And if you ever have a dream about a white place, if something asks you to choose between remembering and being remembered, choose carefully, because I'm still here, typing in my apartment in Portland, watching the rain fall on a city that's forgetting I exist. I can remember everything. Every moment, every face, every photo I'm disappearing from. But tomorrow when you wake up, will you remember me? Will you remember this story, or will it fade like I'm fading? Just another whisper in the static, another shadow in an empty photograph. I guess we'll find out. Look at your photos. Look at them now. Who's missing? Who's fading? Who have you already forgotten? The rain is getting heavier. I can barely see my hands on the keyboard, but I'm still here, still remembering, still disappearing. Wait, something's happening. As I've been typing this, I've been getting notifications on my phone, messages from numbers I don't recognize, all saying the same thing. We remember. The first one came an hour ago, then another, then dozens. My phone won't stop buzzing. We remember the empty spaces. We see the shadows where people used to be. You're not the only one. I clicked on one of the numbers. The contact photo was blank, just a gray silhouette. But when I stared at it long enough, I could almost see features forming. A face trying to push through the static. There are others. Others who chose to remember. My laptop just dinged. An email, no sender address, just blank where the name should be. The subject line, the gathering place. I opened it, one line of text and an address. Tomorrow, 3 a.m. We exist in the spaces between. The address, it's here in Portland. An old building in the industrial district, southeast Portland near the river. I know that area. Warehouses and forgotten places where the city doesn't quite reach. Should I go? Part of me knows it's dangerous. But what do I have to lose? I'm already disappearing. Maybe these others, maybe they know something. Maybe they found a way to reverse it. I just tried to take another selfie. The camera app crashed. Error message. No subject detected. My reflection in my laptop screen is barely there now. Just a shimmer, like heat waves rising from pavement. But I can still type, still think, still remember everything with perfect, horrible clarity. You know what the cruelest part is? I can remember every moment of existing. Every birthday, every first day of school, every kiss, every heartbreak. I remember being real, being solid, being seen. But those memories feel like they belong to someone else now. Someone who had a place in the world. I've been thinking about Dr. Martinez's words. About the choice. Remember or be remembered. It seemed so simple in the dream. Of course, I wanted to remember. Memories make us who we are, right? Without them, we're nothing. But now, I understand. Without being remembered, we're also nothing. Just ghosts haunting our own lives. The messages keep coming. My phone is hot from all the notifications. Some are in languages I don't recognize. But there's a pattern in them. Coordinates, times, cryptic phrases. The photographer sees all but cannot be seen. Memory is a prison with invisible bars. Find us in the forgotten places. Oh, I think there's a whole community of us. People who made the same choice, living in the margins, in the spaces between real and unreal, watching the world but unable to truly touch it. My neighbor just knocked on my door. Mrs. Kim from 4B. Hello? Is someone there? I heard typing, but her voice trailed off. Must be the pipes again. She can hear me, but can't remember I'm here. I've become background noise in my own life. I'm going to that address, I have to. Maybe it's a trap, maybe it's nothing. But if there are others like me, others who are fading from reality, I need to find them. I need to know I'm not alone in this. The white place. I remember more about it now, the thing that asked the question. It wasn't human. Wasn't anything I have words for. It existed in the space between light and shadow, between memory and forgetting. And it's still there. Waiting. Offering the same choice to others. If you ever find yourself in that place, if you ever hear that question, please, learn from my mistake. Choose to be remembered. Choose to leave a mark, even if you forget everything else. Because existing without existing, it's worse than not existing at all. My hands are almost completely transparent now. I can see the keyboard through them, but I'll keep typing until I can't anymore. Keep documenting, keep remembering. The rain has stopped. Portland is quiet except for the distant sound of traffic on I-84. My apartment feels like it's floating, disconnected from the rest of the building, like it's becoming as forgotten as I am. One more thing. If you're watching this, if you stayed until the end, do me a favor. Take a photo, right now, a selfie, a picture of your room, anything. Save it, date it, and check it in a week, a month, a year, because I don't think I'm the first this has happened to, and I won't be the last. The gathering is tomorrow. If I can still type after, I'll update this. I'll tell you what I find. But if this is where my story ends, if I fade completely, remember this. We are the sum of our memories and the memories others have of us. Don't sacrifice one for the other. Don't make my choice. My phone just buzzed one more time, a photo. It's the building where we're supposed to meet. But in the windows, I can see faces, dozens of them. Transparent, flickering faces pressed against the glass. We're real. We exist. We remember. But God, I wish we could forget. If you remember this story tomorrow, if any part of it sticks with you, leave a comment. Tell me you can still see these words. Tell me I existed. Tell me I was real. Because I'm running out of time and I need to know, when I'm completely gone, will anyone notice the empty spaces where I used to be? Will you? Story number 3. The floorboard in my hallway creaked 3 times last night. Not the random settling of the house kind of creak, but 3 deliberate groans, like Morse code, like it was trying to tell me something. If you're listening to this in bed right now, pay attention to your house, really listen. because I used to think those sounds were nothing to, until I learned what they meant. Before you think I'm crazy, let me ask you something. When you're alone at night and your house makes those little noises, do you ever wonder if it's trying to talk to you? Do you ever feel like those creaks and groans follow a pattern? Like there's a message hidden in the settling wood and shifting pipes? Well, I found out there is. And once you understand what your house is saying, you can never unhear it. The story begins now. My name is Sarah Chen, and I bought my first house in Millbrook, Connecticut 3 months ago. It's one of those classic New England colonials from 1947. White clapboard siding, black shutters, red brick chimney. The realtor called it full of character. I should have asked what kind of character she meant. The first week was perfect. I'd wake up to birds chirping, make coffee in my sunny kitchen, and work from my home office overlooking the backyard. The American dream, right? A single woman, 32 years old, finally a homeowner. My parents were so proud when I FaceTimed them from the living room, but then the house started talking. It began with the pipes. Every morning at 5:47 a.m., the pipes in the bathroom wall would knock. Thunk, 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 thunk. Always the same rhythm. I figured it was just old plumbing, water pressure changes when the neighbors showered or something. I even bought those foam pipe insulators from Home Depot and spent a whole Saturday wrapping every pipe I could reach in the basement. The knocking didn't stop. Then came the floorboards. My bedroom is directly above the kitchen, and every night around midnight I'd hear this sequence. Creak, 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 pause, creak. Always the same pattern. Always the same boards. I tried to convince myself it was the wood contracting as the temperature dropped. That's what wood does, right? It expands and contracts, but why always the same pattern? I started keeping a notebook by my bed. Don't judge me. I work in data analysis for an insurance company. Patterns are kind of my thing. I'd write down every sound every time. The knocking pipes, 5:47 a.m. The creaking floors, midnight. The clicking in the walls that started in week 3, 3:33 p.m. Click, click, pause, click, pause, click, click, click. My coworker Jake laughed when I mentioned it during a Zoom call. Sarah, you're overthinking it. Old houses make noise. My apartment sounds like a horror movie every night, and I live in a building from 2015. But Jake's apartment didn't make the same noises at the same times and the same patterns. I tried everything. White noise machines, sleeping with earbuds. I even spent a weekend at my sister's place in Boston just to get away from it. But when I came back, the house seemed angry. The sounds were louder, more insistent. And there were new ones. The kitchen cabinets started. Every evening while I cooked dinner, they'd pop. Not all of them, just the 3 above the stove. Pop, 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 pause, pop, 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 like they were counting. Like they were keeping track of something. I called a contractor. Big guy named Bill, recommended by everyone on the Millbrook Facebook group. He spent 2 hours checking everything. Foundation, pipes, electrical, the works. House is solid, he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. Better shape than most from this era. You got nothing to worry about, miss. But the sounds... He smiled, that condescending smile contractors give when they think you're being a hysterical woman. Ma'am, I've been doing this for 30 years. Every house has its own language. You'll get used to it. Its own language. He didn't know how right he was. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. I was working from home, analyzing claim patterns for suspicious activity, when I realized I was unconsciously tapping my pen. Tap, 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 tap. The same rhythm as the morning pipes. I froze. My hand was moving without me thinking about it, matching that 5:47 a.m. pattern perfectly. How many times had I heard it? How deeply had it buried itself in my subconscious? That's when I started really paying attention. I called in sick the next day, told my manager I had a migraine. Really, I needed to observe the house without distractions. I set up my laptop in the living room with a spreadsheet open, ready to catalog every single sound. 6:23 a.m., the heating vent in the hallway clicked twice, paused, then 3 times. 7:15 a.m., the kitchen window frame popped in a sequence of 4. 8 a.m., the stairs creaked, 3rd step from the top, even though no one was on them. By noon, I had 3 pages of notes, but more importantly, I noticed something that made my hands shake. The sounds weren't just following patterns, they were responding to my activities. When I made coffee, the kitchen cabinets would pop in what I started calling Pattern A. When I sat down to work, the floor beneath my desk would creak, Pattern B. When I took a bathroom break, and this is what really got me, the door would click Pattern C as I approached, before I even touched the handle. The house was anticipating my needs, greeting my actions, like a dog that knows you're about to feed it before you even stand up. I decided to test this theory. I broke my routine completely. Instead of making lunch at noon, I waited until 2 p.m. The kitchen cabinets started popping at 11:55. Pattern A, the coffee pattern, but with an urgency I hadn't heard before. By 12:30, multiple patterns were overlapping from the kitchen. Cabinets, drawers, even the refrigerator humming in rhythm. The house was confused, maybe even worried. "I'm okay," I said out loud, feeling slightly ridiculous. "Just running late today." The sounds stopped immediately. Complete silence for 10 seconds. Then a single, soft creak from the ceiling. Like acknowledgement? That's when I knew I wasn't imagining things. The house was aware. It was learning my habits, my routines, and it was trying to... what? Help? Communicate? I thought about all the times I'd lived in apartments where neighbors were nightmares. Loud music, stomping, arguments through thin walls. But this house? It had been nothing but considerate. The louder sounds only happened during the day. At night, everything was gentle, almost soothing. Even the 3 a.m. clicking I'd noticed was soft enough that it never actually woke me. I only knew about it because I'd been up with insomnia. Wait, the 3 a.m. clicking. I flipped back through my notebook. Every single night, without fail, clicking in the walls at 3 a.m., but the pattern was different from the others. More complex, urgent without being loud, like someone whispering urgently while trying not to wake anyone. That night, I set my alarm for 2:45 a.m. I needed to be fully awake to properly document this pattern. I sat in bed with my notebook, pen ready, waiting. 2:55 a.m. The house began to settle into a different rhythm, quieter than during the day. Preparatory. 2:58 a.m. A soft groan from somewhere deep in the walls. Not the usual settling sound. This was deeper, structural. 3 a.m. The clicking began. Click, click, pause, click, pause, click, 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 pause, click, click. I transcribed frantically, but this pattern was longer than anything I'd heard before. It went on for nearly 2 minutes. Complex sequences that seemed to spiral and loop back on themselves. When it finally stopped, I was left with 2 pages of dots and dashes that made no sense. I tried everything. Morse code, binary, even assigning letters to different pattern combinations. Nothing worked. The 3 a.m. message remained a mystery. The next morning, bleary-eyed and frustrated, I made a decision. If the house was trying to communicate, maybe I needed to think less like a data analyst and more like someone learning a new language. You don't start with complex sentences. You start with basics. I began responding to the house's simple patterns. When the morning pipes said their greeting, I'd knock back on the bathroom wall. When the afternoon clicks welcomed me home, I'd tap on the door frame. When the evening cabinets asked about my day, I'd drum my fingers on the counter in different patterns. Short and sharp for bad days, long and rhythmic for good ones. The house learned fast. Within a week, our conversations had evolved. The morning greeting would be followed by a questioning pattern if I seemed tired. The evening check-in would include what I started to recognize as concern if I'd had a particularly stressful day. But the 3 a.m. pattern remained constant, unchanged, urgent. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, stopped by one afternoon with homemade brownies. She'd lived next door for 40 years, she told me, and wanted to properly welcome me to the neighborhood. Such a lovely house, she said, sitting at my kitchen table. The Millers took good care of it. Before them, the Johnsons. And before them. She paused, frowning. Well, there were quite a few families in the 80s and 90s. Never stayed long. Oh? Why not? She waved her hand dismissively. You know how it is. Job transfers, growing families. Though, she leaned in conspiratorially. There were rumors. Silly talk about the house being noisy, but I've lived next door 4 decades and never heard anything unusual. That's when I realized something crucial. The house wasn't noisy, it was actually incredibly considerate about volume. Every sound it made was just loud enough for the person inside to hear, but not disturbing enough to bother neighbors. It was precise, deliberate, targeted. After Mrs. Patterson left, I sat in my living room thinking, why me? Why was the house talking to me when apparently it had stayed silent for the Millers, the Johnsons, and who knows how many families before? I pulled up the property records online, going back as far as the digital files went. Owner after owner, most staying 5 years or less, but there was a gap in the records. From 1947, when the house was built, until 1952, no ownership information was available. I needed to dig deeper. The Millbrook Historical Society was run out of a converted Victorian house downtown. The elderly volunteer, Mr. Garrett, was delighted to have a visitor actually interested in property records rather than Revolutionary War memorabilia. Oh, yes, the house on Elm Street, he said, pulling out a filing box. Built by Hartwell Construction in 1947. They were the biggest builder in town after the war, put up most of the neighborhood. He found the file and handed it to me. My blood ran cold as I read. The house was built on Lot 47, previously occupied by the Blackwood family home. That house had burned down in November 1946. The fire started in the middle of the night, at approximately 3 a.m. Terrible tragedy, Mr. Garrett said, noticing my expression. Whole family died. They found them in the basement. Smoke inhalation, the report said, though. He lowered his voice. My father was on the fire brigade then. He said it was strange. The basement door was locked from the outside. Someone had trapped them down there. My hands shook as I turned the page. There was a photo of the Blackwood family. Parents in their 30s. 3 children ranging from maybe 5 to 12. They looked so normal, so alive. Was anyone ever charged? No evidence of foul play, officially, but the lot sat empty for months. No one wanted to build there. Bad luck, they said. Finally, Hartwell bought it cheap and put up the current house. First family moved in Christmas of 47. Who were they? The first family? Mr. Garrett flipped through the papers. That's odd. No record of the first sale. Hartwell's records show the house was completed, but no buyer listed until 1952. 5 years. That's unusual. I thanked him and left, my mind racing. 5 years with no official owner. But someone must have lived there. Someone who heard what I was hearing. Someone who understood what the house was trying to say. That night, I waited for the 3 a.m. pattern with new understanding. The house wasn't just making noise, it was marking time. Every night at 3 a.m., the hour the Blackwood house burned, my house remembered. My house warned. But warned about what? As the clicking began, I listened with fresh ears. The pattern wasn't random. It was layered. There was the surface pattern I'd been transcribing, but underneath, barely audible, was something else. A rhythm that seemed to come from deeper in the walls. From the very bones of the house. I pressed my ear against the wall, straining to hear. And there it was. Faint, but unmistakable. A second pattern running counter to the first. Not clicks, but thumps. Muffled thumps, from below, from the basement. I'd been so focused on the sounds the house was making that I'd missed what it was covering up. The house wasn't just talking at 3 a.m., it was drowning out something else, something that was trying to communicate from beneath. My hands trembled as I made my way to the basement door. I'd only been down there twice since moving in, once during the inspection and once to set up the washer and dryer. It was an unfinished basement, just concrete and exposed beams, cold and unwelcoming. The door creaked as I opened it. Immediately, every sound in the house intensified. Pipes groaned, walls clicked frantically, floorboards creaked in rapid succession. The house was screaming at me, "Don't go down there. Don't go down there. Don't go down there." But I had to know. The wooden stairs groaned under my weight. With each step down, the house's warnings grew more desperate. By the time I reached the concrete floor, it sounded like the house was coming apart at the seams. Then I heard it clearly. The thumping from below, not random, patterned, deliberate. Thud, 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 thud. But this wasn't like the house's language. This was crude, desperate, like someone banging on a door with their fists. I walked to the center of the basement, where the sound was loudest. The concrete looked normal, but as I knelt down and placed my hand on it, I could feel vibrations. Something was under there. Deep under. That's when I noticed the mark on the floor. Almost invisible unless you were looking for it. A square outline in the concrete, about 3 feet by 3 feet, like a patch, like something had been filled in. The thumping grew louder, more insistent. And now I could hear something else mixed in. Voices. Muffled, distorted, but unmistakably human. I ran back upstairs, slamming the basement door behind me. The house immediately quieted, its warnings replaced by what I can only describe as relief. But the damage was done. I'd heard them, and they knew I'd heard them. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my living room, every light on, trying to make sense of what I'd discovered. The Blackwood family had died in their basement, trapped. My house was built on the same foundation, and someone was still down there. At 5:47 a.m., the pipes knocked their usual greeting. But this time, there was a sadness to it. The house knew I'd discovered its secret, the thing it had been trying to protect me from. I knocked back on the wall, trying to convey reassurance. The house had been protecting me, warning me. It wasn't the enemy here, but if the house wasn't the threat, what was trapped in the basement? And why did it sound so desperate to get out? I needed help, but who would believe me? Hey, my house talks to me and there's something trapped under my basement floor. They'd think I was crazy. Unless I could find someone else who had lived here. Someone else who had heard what I was hearing. Someone from those missing 5 years between 1947 and 1952. I spent the next 3 days researching. Census records, newspaper archives, property tax records. I found fragments. Mentions of a reclusive woman who lived on Elm Street in the late 40s. Margaret Walsh. She'd been a nurse at Millbrook General, but quit suddenly in 1948. Moved away in 1952, the same year the house was officially sold. She had to be the one. The first person to live in the house. The first person to hear its warnings. Finding her took another week. She was still alive, 93 years old, living in a nursing home in Hartford. When I called, explaining I lived in her old house and had some questions, there was a long pause. "I've been waiting for this call for 70 years, she said. I drove to Hartford that afternoon. Margaret Walsh was sharp as a tack, her eyes clear behind wire-rimmed glasses. She sat in a wheelchair by the window, hands folded in her lap. "You hear it, don't you?" she said without preamble. "The house talks to you." I nodded, unable to speak. It talked to me, too. Took me months to understand, but once I did, She shook her head. That house is special. It's alive in a way most aren't. All that trauma, all that fear from the fire, it soaked into the wood and concrete while it was being built, gave it awareness, consciousness. But the basement, her face darkened. Yes, the basement, you've heard them. The Blackwood family. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's what I thought too at first. Poor trapped souls, victims of that terrible fire, but then I did what you're probably thinking of doing. I tried to help them. What happened? Margaret was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window. I hired workers to break up that patch of concrete. Told them I was putting in a sump pump. They found things. Bones, yes, but arranged in patterns. Symbols. And at the center. She wheeled herself over to an old dresser and pulled out a yellowed envelope. Inside was a photograph. It showed the excavated basement floor, workers standing around a hole. At the bottom of the hole was what looked like a stone box covered in carved symbols. The Blackwood family wasn't trapped by accident, Margaret said. They were a sacrifice. That box, something was sealed inside it. Something that required 5 deaths to keep it contained. The fire wasn't murder. It was a ritual. My blood ran cold. What was in the box? I don't know. I had the workers fill it back in immediately, poured new concrete twice as thick, but it wasn't enough. The thing inside, it's patient. It's been working on that concrete for 70 years, wearing it down, weakening the seal. And the house? The house knows. It was born from that terrible night, gained consciousness from all that fear and death. But instead of being corrupted by it, the house chose to protect, to warn. Every family that's lived there, it's tried to tell them. Most don't listen. They move away, disturbed by the noises. But a few, like you and me, we hear the truth. She grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. The house can't hold it back forever. The seal is weakening. That's why it's getting more desperate, more insistent. It needs someone who understands. Someone who can reinforce the seal before what? Before it breaks free. The Blackwoods didn't just die to trap it. They died to buy us time. But time's running out. I drove home in a daze. Everything made sense now. The patterns, the warnings, the desperation in the house's communications. It wasn't trying to scare me away. It was trying to prepare me. When I got home, the house greeted me with a new pattern. One I understood immediately. Thank you for believing. I placed my hand on the wall. I believe you, I understand. But what do I do now? The response came from every surface at once, a symphony of clicks and creaks and groans that resolved into a single, clear message. Help us hold it back. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, the house and I have been working together. It shows me the weak points in the basement floor, areas where the seal is thinnest. I reinforce them with new concrete, blessed salt, iron filings. Anything Margaret suggested might help. The thing below is getting stronger. Some nights I can hear it clearly, not just thumping now, but scratching, clawing. The Blackwood family's voices are louder too, but I understand now. They're not asking to be freed. They're part of the seal. Their sacrifice is what keeps it contained. Hold on, they whisper through the concrete. Hold on. The house helps as much as it can. It channels its energy into the foundation, adding its strength to the seal. But we both know it's a losing battle. 70 years of erosion, of constant pressure from below. The seal will fail eventually, unless I find another way. Margaret mentioned there were others, other houses built on sites of similar sacrifices, other guardians like me, working with aware houses to hold back things that should never be free. I've been reaching out, posting in forums, searching for patterns, looking for people who say their houses talk to them. Most think they're haunted. They don't understand the difference between a ghost and a guardian, but some do. Some have heard the same warnings. felt the same protective presence. We're forming a network, sharing knowledge, trying to find a permanent solution. Because here's the thing about my house, and others like it. They're not haunted. They're hauntings. Living hauntings. Born from tragedy but choosing protection over revenge. They're the first line of defense against things far worse than ghosts. And we're running out of time. Get out. That's what the 3 a.m. pattern meant. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., the walls would click in a complex sequence I'd initially dismissed as just more noise. But now that I understood the basics of the house's language, the message was clear. Get out, get out, get out. But get out of where? The house? The room? And why was the house telling me to leave if it had been so welcoming otherwise? I started paying attention to when these warnings came. They weren't random. The get out pattern would start in whatever room I was in at 3 a.m. If I was in bed, it came from the bedroom walls. If I was in the kitchen getting water, it came from the cabinets. The house was tracking me, warning me about something specific to my location. One night, I decided to test it. At 2:55 a.m., I stood in the hallway, waiting. As the clock hit 3 o'clock, the pattern started in the walls around me. Click, 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 pause, click, click, get out. I stepped into the bathroom. The pattern stopped immediately, then started again from the bathroom walls. I moved to the guest room. Same thing. The warning followed me. Then I tried something different. I went to the basement. The pattern stopped completely. The house went silent. Not the waiting silence I'd experienced before. This was different. Tense, like the house was holding its breath. I stood at the bottom of the basement stairs, my phone flashlight casting shadows on the concrete walls. The basement was unfinished, just concrete, exposed beams, and my washer and dryer in the corner. I'd only been down here a handful of times. Then I heard it. Not from the house, from below the house. A different pattern, deeper, older, coming from beneath the concrete floor. Thud, 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 thud. This wasn't the house's language. This was something else. Something the house had been trying to warn me about. I ran back upstairs, and immediately the house erupted in noise. Every pattern I'd learned all at once overlapping in a cacophony of clicks and creaks and knocks. But through the chaos, one pattern repeated over and over. Danger below, danger below, danger below. I spent the rest of the night researching. Property records, old newspapers, anything about my house or the land it was built on. What I found made my blood run cold. In 1946, before my house was built, there had been another house on this lot. It burned down in a fire that killed the entire family. The Blackwoods. Parents and 3 children. The newspaper articles were vague about the cause, but one detail stood out. The bodies were found in the basement, huddled together. They hadn't tried to escape. My house was built on the same foundation, the same basement where the Blackwood family died. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the pattern I'd heard from below. When I played back the recording and slowed it down, isolated the rhythm, it wasn't random thuds, it was Morse code, actual human Morse code, LETUSOUT. The Blackwoods weren't gone, they were still here, still in the basement, still trying to escape, and my house, my beautiful, creaking, groaning house, had been trying to protect me from them. Every night at 3 a.m., the hour the fire had started, the house would warn me. Keep me away from the basement. Keep me safe from whatever was trapped below. But now that I knew, now that I'd heard them, the patterns from below were getting stronger, louder, more insistent, and my house's warnings were getting desperate. Last night changed everything. The network I'd been building. Other guardians with aware houses. We'd been sharing information for weeks. Patterns of weakening across the country. Houses working overtime to maintain their seals. And then Jessica from Oregon made a discovery that chilled us all. The sacrifices weren't random. The locations weren't coincidental. Someone, or something, had orchestrated them, placed these sealed horrors at specific points, waiting. "It's a grid," she said during our video call. "Look at the map. Every reported guardian house, every sacrifice site we've found, they form a perfect geometric pattern across North America." She was right. My house in Connecticut, hers in Oregon, Marcus's in Texas, Elena's in Michigan. Dozens of points of light on a dark map. And at the center of the grid, nothing. A void. A blank space in Kansas where something should be but isn't. The houses know what's there. They've been trying to tell us, but the language is too complex, too layered. It would take years to fully decode, and we don't have years. The thing under my basement is getting stronger. Last week, a crack appeared in the new concrete I'd poured. Just a hairline fracture, but the house's reaction was immediate. Every pattern, every sound screamed the same message. Not much time, not much time, not much time. I was lying in bed, listening to the house's increasingly frantic warnings, when I heard something new. The front door. It creaked open. Not the wind, not a break-in. The house had opened it. Run. The floorboards creaked. Now. But I'm stubborn. I'm a data analyst. I need to understand. So, instead of running, I grabbed my phone, opened my recording app, and headed downstairs. The house protested with every step. The stairs groaned warnings. The walls clicked frantically. Even the air felt thick, like the house was trying to push me back. The front door was wide open, cool October air streaming in. Beyond it, my quiet suburban street looked peaceful, normal, safe. Then I heard it, from the basement. Not just the pattern this time. Voices. Clear, distinct voices. She's the one. The guardian who listens. Time to end the vigil. The basement door flew open. Not violently, gently, invitingly. The house's protests reached a crescendo, but underneath them I heard something else. Resignation. Acceptance. The house knew this moment would come. It had been preparing me for it. I descended the stairs, my phone light shaking in my trembling hand. The voices grew louder with each step. At the bottom, I saw them. The Blackwood family stood in a circle around the cracked seal, not shadows or ghosts. They looked as real as me, but their eyes were ancient, tired. 70 years of holding back something unimaginable had left its mark. "Sarah," Mrs. Blackwood said, and her voice was like autumn leaves. "We've waited so long for a guardian who could truly hear." The youngest child, a boy who couldn't have been more than 5 when he died, stepped forward. "The houses chose well. You understand them. You trust them. That's why you're here." "I don't understand," I said. "The seal is breaking. The house told me to run." Mr. Blackwood smiled sadly. "The house loves you. It wants to protect you, but it also knows what must be done. What was always meant to be done when the time came." The crack in the floor widened. Something moved beneath it. Something vast and patient and older than comprehension. "The seals were never meant to last forever," Mrs. Blackwood explained. "They were meant to hold until the right guardians emerged. Guardians who could work with the houses, not against them. Who could forge a new kind of seal. A living seal." I understood then. The houses hadn't just been warning us, they'd been training us, teaching us their language so we could become part of the network. Living anchors in a grid of protection. "But what about you?" I asked. "You've been trapped here for 70 years. The eldest daughter laughed, and it sounded like wind chimes. "Trapped? We chose this. Every family did. We knew what was at stake. What would happen if these things ever broke free all at once? So we became the first seal. But we're tired, Sarah, so tired. It's time for the next generation to take over." The house groaned above us. Not in protest now, but in sorrow. It understood what they were asking, what I would have to choose. If I become part of the seal, I started. "You won't die," the boy said quickly. "Not like we did. The houses have evolved, they've learned. The new seal will be different. You'll be connected to your house, part of its consciousness. You'll help it hold the line, and you won't be alone." He gestured to the walls, and I saw it. Messages in the house's language, too fast for me to fully read, but I caught fragments. Other guardians were having the same conversation in their basements. The network was activating. "But I'll never be able to leave," I said. Mrs. Blackwood's expression was kind. "The house will never be just walls and floors to you again. It will be an extension of yourself, and you'll be able to travel through the network, consciousness to consciousness, house to house. You'll be more free than you've ever been." The crack widened. The thing below was stirring, sensing weakness. "Choose quickly," Mr. Blackwood urged. "The old seal fails. Only a new one can contain it now." I thought about my normal life, my data analysis job, my sister in Boston, coffee with friends, dating apps and grocery shopping and all the mundane things that made up a human existence. Then I thought about the house, how it greeted me every morning, how it worried when I was late, how it had tried so hard to protect me from this moment, even knowing it was inevitable. This house that had chosen consciousness over corruption, protection over power. I thought about the other guardians, Jessica and Marcus and Elena and dozens of others, all facing the same choice in their own basements. All of us connected by houses that had learned to love and protect their humans. And I thought about what would happen if we said no, if the seals broke, if things that had been contained for decades suddenly erupted into a world unprepared for their existence. "How do I do it?" I asked. The Blackwood family smiled as one. They moved apart, revealing a symbol carved into the floor. The same symbol from Margaret's photograph. It glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the house's heartbeat. "Stand in the center," Mrs. Blackwood instructed. "Open yourself to the house completely. Let it in. Let it merge with you. Become the bridge between human consciousness and architectural awareness." I stepped into the circle. Immediately, I felt the house's presence like never before. Not just sounds now, but thoughts, emotions. A vast network of sensory information flowing through wood and wire and pipe. "Welcome," the house said, directly into my mind. "I'm sorry. I tried to protect you from this." "I know," I said. "It's okay. We're partners now." The Blackwood family began to fade, their exhausted spirits finally allowed to rest. But before they disappeared completely, the little boy ran to me, translucent hands gripping mine. "Thank you," he whispered, "for listening, for understanding, for choosing to protect others like we protected you." Then they were gone, and I was alone. Except I wasn't. I could feel every board, every nail, every pipe in the house. More than that, I could feel the other houses, the entire network spreading across the continent. Other guardians making the same choice, merging with their architectural protectors. The thing beneath the seal roared its frustration. It had been so close to freedom, but the new seal was forming. Not just concrete and sacrifice now, but living will. Human creativity merged with architectural permanence. Together, the house said, and I couldn't tell if it was my thought or its thought because we were becoming one. Together, we hold the line. I felt the others join. Jessica's curiosity melding with her Victorian's ancient wisdom. Marcus's determination fusing with his ranch house's sturdy pragmatism. Elena's compassion joining her colonial's protective instincts. One by one, we became the new seal. The new guardians. Human enough to adapt and learn. Architectural enough to endure and persist. The thing below shrieked once more, then fell silent, contained. Not by death and sacrifice, but by life and choice. I opened my eyes. I was still standing in my basement, but everything was different. I could feel every insect in the walls, every drop of moisture in the pipes, every grain of wood in the beams. The house was me, and I was the house. But I could also walk upstairs, make coffee, call my sister, live something resembling a normal life. As long as I stayed connected. As long as I maintained the seal. This is weird, I thought. You'll get used to it, the house replied. We have time now, all the time in the world. I laughed, and the walls laughed with me. A creaking, groaning, beautiful sound that would have terrified me 3 months ago. My phone rang. Jessica, but not through the phone, through the network, through the houses. So, her voice echoed through my consciousness. I guess we're architecture now. Want to compare notes? Absolutely, I said, both aloud and through the connection. But first, I need to learn how to be a better house. Mine's been carrying this burden alone for 70 years. It's my turn to help. Thank you, my house whispered. Thank you for choosing us. I put my hand on the wall, my wall, our wall. Thank you for choosing me. As I headed upstairs to start my new existence, I felt the network pulse with purpose. Dozens of guardian houses spread across the map, each one a point of light holding back the darkness. And at the center of the grid, that void in Kansas, I could sense something there now. Not empty space, but potential, a gathering point. A future we were all building toward. But that's a story for another time. Right now, I had a language to master, a house to merge with, a seal to maintain. And you know what? I was okay with that. Because I finally understood what my house had been trying to tell me all along. You're home, you're safe, you're never alone. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet as I climbed the stairs. But now, I knew what they were saying. Welcome to forever. Run. The floorboards creaked. Now. But I'm stubborn. I'm a data analyst. I need to understand. So, instead of running, I grabbed my phone, opened my recording app, and headed downstairs. The house protested with every step. The stairs groaned warnings. The walls clicked frantically. Even the air felt thick, like the house was trying to push me back. The front door was wide open, cool October air streaming in. Beyond it, my quiet suburban street looked peaceful, normal, safe. Then I heard it from the basement. Not just the pattern this time. Voices, whispers, growing louder. She heard us. She knows. Finally, the basement door flew open. I should have run then. Every instinct screamed at me to get out. But I had to know, I had to understand. I descended the stairs, my phone light shaking in my trembling hand. The whispers grew louder with each step. At the bottom, I saw them. Shadows. 5 shadows against the concrete wall. 2 large, 3 small, a family. The Blackwood family. But they weren't ghosts. Not exactly. They were imprints. Burned into reality itself by whatever had happened that night in 1946. Stuck in a loop, trying to escape a fire that had ended decades ago. Help us, they whispered in unison. Free us. The house groaned above me, its loudest protest yet. Now I understood. The house wasn't protecting me from them. It was protecting them from me. Because it knew what I'd just figured out. They weren't trapped by the fire. They were trapped by the foundation, by the concrete poured over the spot where they died. They couldn't move on because they were literally built over, buried under the weight of my home. To free them, I'd have to destroy the foundation, destroy my house. Please, the shadows whispered. We've been here so long, so long, so long. Story number 4. The brass buttons were cold under my fingertips. Colder than they should have been in the middle of July. I pressed the call button for the 3rd time, watching the ancient dial above the elevator doors tick slowly from floor to floor. 12, 11, 10. My grandmother used to tell me about the old elevators in Chicago. The ones with operators who knew everyone's name, who'd smile and ask about your day while pulling that brass gate closed. She said they were like friends you'd see every morning, until they weren't there anymore. 9, 8, 7. But what happens when they never really leave? 6, 5. What happens when death is just another shift that never ends? The dial stopped at 4, then, impossibly, it started moving backward. If you're listening to this late at night, maybe with your headphones on, thinking this is just another story, I need you to understand something. Some doors, once opened, can never fully close again. And some people, they keep showing up for work, long after their final paycheck. My name is Sarah Chen, and last week I moved into the Bradmore building on Michigan Avenue. Built in 1925, 14 floors of faded grandeur, and one elevator that shouldn't exist anymore. This is where the story begins. The realtor had been almost too eager to show me the apartment. Mrs. Davidson, a woman in her 60s with perfectly styled gray hair and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She'd practically dragged me through the lobby that first day. Original marble floors, she'd said, her heels clicking across the black and white checkered pattern. And look at these crown moldings. You just don't find craftsmanship like this anymore. I'd been distracted by the elevator then, an ornate brass cage that looked like it belonged in a museum, the kind with a manual gate and a fold-down seat for the operator. Except, is that elevator still functional? I'd asked. Mrs. Davidson's smile had flickered, just for a second. Oh, we use the modern ones now, those two on the right. Much more reliable. But I'd noticed she hadn't said the old one didn't work, just that they didn't use it. The apartment was perfect. 7th floor, corner unit with windows overlooking the lake. Original hardwood floors that creaked in all the right places, radiators that clanged like old friends. The rent was suspiciously reasonable for downtown Chicago. Should have been my first warning. I signed the lease that afternoon. Moving day came a week later, July 15th. I remember because it was my mother's birthday, and I'd promised to call her once I was settled. The movers had just left, and I was standing among towers of cardboard boxes when I heard it for the first time. Ding, the sound of an elevator arriving, but not the modern ones. Their chimes were electronic, sharp. This was deeper, mechanical, like a bell being struck by an actual hammer. I walked to my door and peered out into the hallway. The lights were those old fluorescent ones that hummed and flickered. At the far end, past the two modern elevators, the brass cage stood open, and someone was inside. He wore a uniform. Burgundy with gold trim, brass buttons that caught the stuttering light. Gray hair slicked back under a matching cap. He was adjusting something on the control panel, his movements precise, practiced. "Excuse me?" I called out. He turned and smiled. It was a warm smile, genuine, the kind that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "7th floor," he said, his voice carrying that particular Chicago accent my grandmother used to have. "Watch your step, miss." I found myself walking toward him, drawn by something I couldn't name. The brass gate was already open, waiting. "I didn't know this elevator was in service," I said. "Oh, I keep her running," he replied, patting the control panel like you'd pat an old dog. "Been running this car since, well, longer than I care to remember. You must be the new tenant in 7B. I nodded, surprised. "How did you—" "I make it my business to know," he said, that smile never wavering. "Small building like this, you get to know everyone eventually. I'm Arthur Brennan." "Sarah," I said, shaking his offered hand. His grip was firm, but cold. So cold, I almost pulled away. "Would you like a ride down? I know you just moved in, but sometimes folks need things. Forgotten groceries, takeout menus." I glanced at the modern elevators. Both were on the ground floor, doors open and waiting. Then back at Arthur in his antique cage. I should probably unpack," I said. "Of course." He touched the brim of his cap, an old-fashioned gesture that seemed perfectly natural coming from him, But if you ever need a lift, just press the call button. I'm usually around. The gate slid closed with a sound like whispered metal. I watched the dial above tick downward. 6, 5, 4. And then the strangest thing. The elevator car passed by the 3rd floor. I could see it through the small window in the door. But the car was empty. Arthur was gone. I stood there for, I don't know how long. Long enough for the hallway lights to flicker twice. Long enough to convince myself I'd imagined it. Stress from the move, too much coffee, not enough sleep. But when I finally went back to my apartment, I found something slipped under my door. An old takeout menu from a restaurant called Manny's Delicatessen. The prices were listed in cents, not dollars, and across the top in faded blue ink, "Welcome to the building, AB." The paper was yellowed with age, brittle at the edges, and when I Googled Manny's Delicatessen, I found it had closed in 1965. That first week I tried to convince myself it was some sort of historical reenactment. Maybe the building management thought it was charming, having someone dress up as an old-time elevator operator. Chicago was full of tourist gimmicks like that. But then things started happening that couldn't be explained away so easily. It was Thursday night, or technically Friday morning, 2:47 a.m. according to the green glow of my alarm clock. I'd been lying in bed listening to the familiar sounds of the old building, pipes groaning, wood settling, the distant hum of the city that never quite went away. Ding, that mechanical chime again, but this time it was followed by voices. Muffled, like they were coming through water, but definitely voices. Laughing, music playing, but not any modern music. Big band, Glenn Miller maybe. I crept to my door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was dark except for the emergency exit signs. But there was light coming from somewhere. A warm, golden glow that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of the music. I opened my door just a crack. The old elevator was running. I could hear the cables moving, the counterweights shifting in the shaft. And the music was definitely coming from inside it. But more than that, I could smell things that made no sense. Cigarette smoke, even though the building had been non-smoking for decades. Perfume, heavy and floral, like my grandmother used to wear. And something else. Ozone maybe, like the air before a thunderstorm. The elevator passed my floor, going up. Through the small window I caught a glimpse of the interior. And it was full of people. Men in suits and fedoras, women in cocktail dresses with victory rolls in their hair. They were laughing, champagne glasses in hand, and in the middle of them all stood Arthur. Not old Arthur with his gray hair and lined face, but a younger version. Dark-haired, smooth-skinned, but unmistakably him. Our eyes met through the glass just for a second, and he winked at me before the car continued upward. I stood in my doorway for maybe 10 minutes, waiting. The music faded as the elevator climbed, then silence. I watched the dial above the old elevator, but it didn't move. It stayed firmly at 14, the top floor. Except the Bradmore building only has 13 floors. I went back to bed but didn't sleep. How could I? I lay there listening, waiting for the elevator to come back down, but it never did. When my alarm went off at 7, I checked the hallway again. The old elevator was sitting peacefully at the ground floor, gates closed, looking exactly as abandoned as it had the day I moved in. That morning, I did what any reasonable person would do. I went to the building management office. Mr. Petrov, the building manager, was a thick-set man in his 50s who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. His office smelled like burnt coffee and defeat. "The old elevator?" he said when I asked, not looking up from his computer. "It's not in service, hasn't been for years." "But I saw someone operating it. Arthur Brennan?" That got his attention. He looked up sharply, his face going a shade paler. "Who told you that name?" "He did, the operator, older man, gray hair, burgundy uniform. Mr. Petrov stood up so fast his chair rolled backward into the wall. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, his accent, Russian maybe, becoming thicker. "That elevator is off limits, you understand? We keep it for historical purposes. But nobody uses it, nobody. But I saw..." "You saw nothing." He was sweating now, despite the aggressive air conditioning. "You want to live in this building? You stay away from that elevator. You take the modern ones, always the modern ones." I left his office more confused than ever. But that night I made a decision. I was going to find out what was happening in the Bradmore building. Even if it meant taking a ride I might regret. The smart thing would have been to leave it alone. Pack up, break my lease, find another apartment. Chicago's full of places to live that don't come with their own ghostly elevator operator. But I've never been particularly smart when it comes to mysteries. That Friday night I waited. Sat in my living room with all the lights off, watching the clock tick toward midnight. I'd done my research during the day, spent hours at the Harold Washington Library, diving into old newspapers on microfilm until my eyes burned. Arthur Brennan had been real. Started working at the Bradmore building in 1938, fresh out of high school. There was even a photo in a 1962 article about longtime building employees. Same warm smile, same kind eyes. The article mentioned he knew every tenant by name, remembered their birthdays, kept candy in his pocket for the kids. He'd died on October 15th, 1965. Heart attack while operating the elevator. They found him slumped over the controls between the 7th and 8th floors. The elevator had kept running somehow, carrying his body up and down for hours before anyone noticed. Midnight came and went. Then 1 o'clock, I was starting to doze when I heard it. Ding! I was in the hallway before I'd fully thought it through. The old elevator stood open, warm light spilling out like honey, and there was Arthur, looking exactly as he had that first day. "Evening, Miss Chen," he said, touching his cap. "Working late?" My mouth was dry. I know about you." His smile didn't falter. "Do you now? You died in 1965, October 15th. He considered this, adjusting one of his brass buttons. "That's one way of looking at it," he said finally. "But I prefer to think of it as an extended shift. Are you coming in, or are we going to chat in the hallway all night?" Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I stepped into the elevator. The gate closed with that whispered metal sound. Arthur pushed the control lever and we started to descend. The brass walls reflected our images into infinity. Me in my jeans and old Northwestern University sweatshirt, him in his perfect uniform. "Where are we going?" I asked. "That depends," he said, watching the floors tick by. "Where do you need to go?" "I don't understand." He sighed, a sound like wind through empty rooms. "This building, it's seen a lot of years, a lot of lives, people coming and going, dreams starting and ending, and sometimes those moments get stuck, like a record skipping. We passed the ground floor but kept going. There should have been basement levels, parking, storage, the boiler room, but the dial kept turning, -1, -2. "Are you stuck?" I asked. He laughed, not unkindly. "In a way, but it's not so bad. I liked my job, you see, loved it really, watching people's stories unfold, being part of their days. When that event happened in 65, I just couldn't see the point in stopping. -5, -6. The air was getting colder. But here's the thing, Miss Chen, I'm not the only one who got stuck. This building, it collects things, moments, people. That party you saw the other night, that was New Year's Eve, 1943. Young men about to ship out to war, their girls trying to pretend they weren't terrified. They replay that night over and over, the last perfect moment before everything changed. -10. The brass walls were frosting over. "Why are you telling me this?" He turned to look at me fully. His eyes were sad, so terribly sad. because you're starting to see it. Once you start seeing, you can't stop, and that means you have a choice to make. The elevator shuddered to a halt. The dial read -13. "This is your floor," Arthur said. Through the gate I could see nothing, just black. But it wasn't empty darkness, it was full, writhing with shapes that weren't quite shapes, sounds that weren't quite sounds. "What is this?" "The foundation," he said quietly. "Every building has one, but the Bradmore. It's built on something special, something that was here long before the city, before the lake was a lake. And it's hungry, Miss Chen, always hungry." I backed away from the gate. "Take me back. Please, take me back up." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded and pushed the lever. We started to rise. "You could leave," he said as we climbed. "Pack up, move out, forget you ever lived here." Could I? He smiled, that same warm smile, but now I could see the exhaustion behind it. "No, probably not. Once it knows you can see, it doesn't like to let go." We reached the 7th floor. My floor. The gate opened. "So, what do I do?" I asked. "You do what we all do," he said. "You make your peace with it, you learn the rules, and you try not to feed it." Feed it? But the gate was already closing. "Good night, Miss Chen. Sweet dreams." The elevator descended, taking its impossible light with it. I stood in the dark hallway, shaking. Not from cold, but from understanding. The Bradmore building was hungry, and I was starting to understand what it ate. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. By Sunday, I was exhausted, jumpy, seeing things in every shadow. But I was also determined. If I was trapped here, and some part of me already knew I was, then I needed to understand the rules. I started with the other tenants, Mrs. Kowalski and 7. A had lived in the building for 43 years. When I knocked on her door with a plate of cookies, a bribe my mother had taught me, she invited me in for tea. Her apartment was a museum of doilies and porcelain cats. "The elevator?" she said when I carefully brought it up. "Oh, we don't talk about the elevator, dear." "But you know about it, about Arthur." She set down her teacup so hard it rattled. "What you need to understand," she said slowly, "is that Arthur, he's the good one. He keeps things balanced. Without him, what?" She looked toward her door, as if someone might be listening. "There have been other operators after Arthur, the building. It tries to replace him sometimes, brings in someone new, someone alive. They never last long. What happens to them?" But she wouldn't say more. I tried other tenants. Mr. Garcia on the 3rd floor just crossed himself and closed the door in my face. The young couple in 4B claimed they'd never seen anything unusual, but I noticed they always took the stairs. It was Tuesday night when things escalated. I was coming home late from work. The modern elevators were both mysteriously out of order. A handwritten sign said, "Use freight elevator." But I knew there was no freight elevator, not anymore. The old elevator was waiting, doors open. Arthur wasn't there. Instead, there was a young man in an ill-fitting uniform. Couldn't have been more than 20, with nervous eyes and shaking hands. Going up?" he stammered. I recognized him. From the newspapers. Timothy Vance, the operator they'd hired in 1987. He'd lasted 6 weeks before disappearing. The papers said he'd probably run off. Debts, maybe drugs. But standing there, looking at his terrified face, I knew better. "Where's Arthur?" I asked. Timothy swallowed hard. "He's resting. They make him rest sometimes, so others can work the shift." I stepped into the elevator, had to. The poor kid looked ready to bolt, and something told me that would be bad. Very bad. "How long have you been here?" I asked gently. "I don't." He pushed the lever and we started up. Time's funny here. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes like forever. I just wanted a job, just needed work. We reached the 7th floor, but the elevator didn't stop. Kept going up, 8, 9. Timothy, you need to stop the elevator. I can't. Tears were running down his face. It won't let me. Not until someone new comes. Someone who can see, someone who might. 13. Then that impossible 14th floor. The doors opened onto a long hallway that shouldn't exist. The walls were wrong. They breathed, pulsing like a throat swallowing. At the far end, a door stood open, revealing an office that belonged in 1965. And behind a desk sat a man I recognized from my research. Harold Bradmore, the building's original owner. He'd died in 1963, but here he was, reviewing papers, signing documents with a pen that left trails of shadow instead of ink. "Ah," he said without looking up. "The new tenant. Come in, come in." I didn't move, couldn't move. Timothy was whimpering beside me. "Don't be rude," Bradmore said. And suddenly, I was walking, my feet moving without my permission. The hallway contracted around me, pushing me forward like peristalsis. I found myself in a chair across from his desk. The office smelled of cigars and something else, something organic and wrong. "You've been asking questions," he said, finally looking at me. His eyes were holes, not empty, but full of that same writhing darkness I'd seen in the basement. "That's good. Curiosity means you're almost ready." "Ready for what?" He smiled. Too many teeth arranged in too many rows. "To feed the building, of course. It's hungry, Miss Chen. Always so hungry. And Arthur? Well, Arthur's getting tired. Even the dead can wear out, given enough time." "You want me to replace him?" "Want?" He laughed, a sound like bones breaking. "Oh, my dear, want has nothing to do with it. The building chooses. And it's chosen you. The only question is whether you'll take the position willingly, or like poor Timothy here." I looked back. Timothy was frozen in the doorway, his face a mask of perpetual terror. "What if I refuse?" Bradmore leaned back, his chair creaking with sounds that weren't wood. "Then you'll feed it anyway, just differently, more directly. The building needs life, Miss Chen. It can take it slowly, over years of service, or all at once." The walls pulsed faster, hungrier. "How long?" I asked. "How long would I have to?" "Oh, not long. 60, 70 years, a single lifetime. Then you can rest, like Arthur rests, until the next one comes along." I thought about running, but where would I go? The building knew me now, had tasted me. Can I think about it?" He waved a hand that had too many joints. "Of course. Take your time. But not too much time. The building's patience isn't infinite." Suddenly, I was back in the elevator. Timothy was gone. Arthur was there, looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. "I'm sorry," he said as we descended. "I tried to keep you away from him. From them. Is it true, what he said?" Arthur was quiet for a long moment. "The building needs a caretaker, someone who can see both sides, the living and the stuck. Someone to keep the balance, keep it fed without letting it gorge. And if I say no?" We reached my floor. As the gate opened, he touched my shoulder. His hand was ice. "Then enjoy the time you have left," he said simply, "however much that is." I stumbled out, back to my apartment, locked the door, pushed a chair against it. Useless gestures, but they made me feel better. That was 6 days ago. The modern elevators haven't worked since. The stairs don't go where they should anymore. I tried to leave yesterday, got as far as the 3rd floor before finding myself back on the 7th. The building won't let me go. Arthur still runs the old elevator, still smiles, still tips his cap, but I can see him fading, getting thinner, more translucent. "Soon," he tells me, "you'll have to choose soon." I've made my peace with it, I think. What choice do I have? At least as an operator, I'd have some control. Could maybe protect people, like Arthur protected me as long as he could. could learn the building's moods, its hungers, maybe find ways to satisfy it without what happened to Timothy and the others, because I've seen them now, a dozen operators spanning a century, all working their eternal shifts in the spaces between floors, all feeding the building with their endless service. Tomorrow, I'll tell Arthur yes. I'll put on the uniform, burgundy with gold trim, brass buttons that never tarnish. I'll learn to operate the old elevator, learn which floors are safe and which lead to hungry darkness. I'll smile and tip my cap and remember everyone's name. And in 60 or 70 years, when someone new moves in, someone who can see, I'll try to protect them, try to give them a choice. Or maybe I'll just be tired by then, too tired to fight the building's hunger. Maybe that's how it always goes. If you're still listening, if you made it this far, do me a favor. If you ever find yourself in Chicago looking for an apartment, and you see a beautiful old building with marble floors and brass fixtures and rent that's just too good to be true, keep walking. Some doors, once opened, never let you leave. And some jobs, they really do last forever. Arthur's calling. The elevator's here. Time for me to learn my new trade. Time to start my shift. The one that never ends. Ding. Did you hear that? That sound at the end? Play it back. I swear the elevator chime sounds different each time, and if you look up the Bradmore building on Michigan Avenue, well, let me know what you find. Or don't find. Some of you might even recognize the building, might have walked past it without knowing. Maybe you've even felt that strange pull, the urge to step inside just to see those marble floors. But now you know better, don't you? What would you choose? An eternity of service or feeding the darkness all at once? Let me know in the comments, if you dare, and hit that subscribe button, because I have more stories from Chicago, stories about buildings that breathe, and the people who never quite leave them. Sweet dreams.